My name is Whitley and I'm 32 years old. I was 26 when my father changed the locks on a Tuesday afternoon while I was finishing a 9-hour shift at the marketing firm downtown. I remember it was a Tuesday because I had just survived a budget meeting that ran 2 hours over, and all I wanted was to get home, kick off my heels, and eat something that wasn't vending machine crackers. I had been living in my childhood home for 14 months at that point. Not out of failure, not out of weakness, but because my father had sat across from me at the kitchen table and asked me to stay. He said the mortgage had gotten heavy. He said things were tight. He looked older than I remembered. And when he asked if I could contribute, I said yes without hesitation. $1,200 a month, every first of the month, on time, without a single reminder. I was 24 when I moved back in, and I told myself it was temporary, a year, maybe 2, just to help them find their footing. What I did not know then was that I was not a daughter coming home. I was a tenant being tolerated. My sister Bryn was the youngest. She was 22 then, had never held a job longer than 3 months, and had a habit of burning bridges and then asking to borrow yours. My parents never said a word about it. She was the baby. She had potential. She just needed time. I had heard that sentence so many times it had lost all meaning, like a word you repeat until it sounds foreign. Bryn needed time. Meanwhile, I was paying rent in my own childhood bedroom and eating lunch in my car so I could send money home on time. I never complained. That was my mistake. Silence in a family like mine doesn't earn respect. It just shows people exactly where the line is, and then they learn to step right past it. The text came at 5:47 p.m. I was sitting in my car in the parking garage, key already in the ignition. I remember the exact chill that moved through me when I read it. My father had written, and I will never forget these words for as long as I live, "Your room is your sister's now. Come get your stuff from the lawn. We changed the locks. Don't make this difficult." That was it. No phone call before it. No conversation. No warning. Just a text delivered like a memo, as though I were a tenant who had overstayed a lease rather than a daughter who had paid to keep the lights on. I sat there for 3 minutes without moving. I read it 4 times. I was not crying. I want to be clear about that. I was not crying. What I felt was not sadness. It was something colder and more focused than sadness. It was clarity. I drove home. My things were on the lawn. 2 duffel bags, a box of books, a lamp without its shade. Bryn's car was in the driveway. The curtain in the front window shifted. Nobody came to the door. I loaded everything into my trunk in 4 trips. And when I was done, I stood on that lawn for a moment and looked at the house I had poured money and time and loyalty into. And I made myself a promise that I have kept every single day since. I did not knock. I did not call. I did not beg. There was nothing left in me that wanted to fight for a place where my presence carried a price tag and my absence was treated as a convenience. I drove to a friend's apartment that night. Her name was Sasha, and she offered me her couch without asking a single question, which is the kind of kindness you only truly understand when you have genuinely needed it. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and I began thinking clearly for the first time in over a year. $1,200 times 14 months. I did the math without a calculator. I had paid my father $16,800. I had a bank statement showing every transfer. I had text messages confirming the arrangement. And I had a new text sent at 5:47 on a Tuesday proving I had been removed from my home without notice, without cause, and without the legally required process. Because in the state where I lived, even a family member paying rent holds tenant rights. I was not just a daughter who had been discarded. I was a paying tenant who had been illegally locked out. By Wednesday morning, I had an appointment with a tenant rights attorney. By Thursday afternoon, I had filed. And by Friday, my father had a sheriff at his door holding papers that made both of them go pale. The sheriff's visit was not something I staged for drama. I want to make that clear, because I know how it sounds. A daughter serving her own parents with legal papers feels like something out of a film, something calculated for maximum impact. But it was not about impact. It was about math. It was about $16,800 and a text sent at 5:47 on a Tuesday that treated 6 years of loyalty like it meant nothing. The attorney I met with on Wednesday was a composed woman named Serena, and she laid everything out on her desk without emotion, which was exactly what I needed. She said I had a strong case. She said the combination of consistent rent payments, documented bank transfers, and an abrupt lockout without written notice or proper eviction proceedings gave me significant legal standing. She said we could pursue the illegal lockout, the return of a security deposit never formally collected but implied through our arrangement, and additional damages. I told her to proceed. My father called Friday evening, 2 hours after the sheriff left. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. I let that go too. Then my mother called, and her voice on the recording was something I had never heard before, not angry, not cold, but genuinely shaken, as though the floor had shifted beneath her and she could not find her balance. She said they needed to talk. She said things had gotten out of hand. She used the word misunderstanding 3 times in 40 seconds, which told me everything I needed to know about where their heads were. There was no misunderstanding. There was a text on my phone that I had screenshot and forwarded to my attorney. There were 14 months of bank transfers with a memo line reading rent, every single one. There was a lamp without a shade sitting in my friend's living room that used to be in my childhood bedroom. None of that was a misunderstanding. What surfaced during the legal process was worse than what I already knew. Bryn had been pushing for my room for months. She had told my parents she wanted to move back home and could not share a floor with me because of the tension between us, which was true. But that tension existed entirely because she had borrowed money from me twice and repaid neither amount. My parents had agreed to hand her my room without telling me, without asking me to leave through any proper channel, and without any intention of returning the rent I had paid in advance for that month. They had simply decided, as a family unit that did not fully include me, that I was the most movable piece on the board. What they had forgotten, or perhaps never fully registered, was that I was also the piece that had been quietly holding the board together. During the proceedings, my father's attorney attempted to frame the payments as voluntary contributions from a family member rather than rent. That argument lasted exactly as long as it took my attorney to present the bank records, the text thread where my father confirmed the monthly amount, and the message where he explicitly referred to the arrangement as her covering her part. His own words, sent from his own phone. The case never reached a full trial. 3 weeks after filing, they settled. I will not disclose the full amount, but I will say it covered every dollar I had paid, the cost of temporary housing, and my legal fees in their entirety. I did not feel victorious when I signed. I felt tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. The hardest part was not the legal process. The hardest part was the silence that followed. My mother sent me a message 2 months later saying she hoped we could move past this. Bryn never reached out at all. My father, the man who asked me to come home because he needed help, who cashed my transfers every single month, who sent that text at 5:47 on a Tuesday, mailed me a birthday card in the fall with no mention of anything that had happened. Just a generic printed message and his signature. I looked at it for a long time. Then I put it in a drawer and closed it. I am 32 now. I have my own apartment with a lease in my own name. I have savings that I built back from nothing, dollar by dollar, the same way I have rebuilt most things in my life, quietly, consistently, without asking anyone to applaud it. I do not hate my family. Hate requires ongoing energy that I have far better uses for. What I have instead is distance. And within that distance, I have finally learned what it feels like to live somewhere that is entirely, unconditionally mine. If you are sitting somewhere right now feeling like the most movable piece in your own family, I need you to hear this. You are allowed to stop moving. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to know your worth, and then refuse to accept anything less than that from anyone, including the people who were supposed to love you first. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Every week on Frost Family Stories, we bring you real, raw accounts of family betrayal and the strength it takes to start over. You are not alone in this. We will see you in the next one.